What's happening, Buckeye fans? It's BuCkIfReAk with a follow-up video to the depth chart video. I just want to polish up some things from the depth chart video, and I also want to talk and spend most of my time today talking about the impact of the freshmen in the freshman recruiting class. So we're going to do both those things. I know I mentioned late in the video that I'd forgot Antoine Jackson and his exact spot in the interior defensive line, and I want to say that behind Jerron Cage is where Antoine Jackson falls, and a far bigger impact player than Tyleik Williams. And I did mention that Tyleik was more down in the 6 or 7 of the interior defensive line depth chart. As a perfect segue into the freshman. So I look at Tyleik Williams as being a guy that probably redshirts this season. May get a little bit of playing time early, get a feel out, get some time. Maybe not so much in the first 2 games, but certainly not too much that redshirt wouldn't be an option. So that's his impact as a freshman. Obviously, there's some freshmen that stand out the most, and we'll talk about those. I have picked 2 freshmen to lead some pretty big, important categories. I went out on a limb with the last video and called TreVeyon Henderson my pick for the leading rusher on this team in 2021. I'm going to stick with that pick. I know that with Master Teague out there, he's got a lot to prove, and they're 2 different types of running backs, and I think for that reason they're both going to be used a lot, and they're both going to produce a lot. But Master Teague didn't have the yards per carry and doesn't have the explosiveness for me to call him the leading rusher of this football team by the end of the season. So that's my prediction. I think both guys are going to contribute. So is Mayan Henderson at that position. But in terms of impact freshman, TreVeyon Henderson, definitely one of those guys way up the list, right there with Jack Sawyer. I think Jack Sawyer and TreVeyon Henderson are potentially bigger impact freshmen than JTT is. Jack Sawyer, I think, just is so prototypical defensive end, unlike JTT, that he's such a great motor sack type of guy and speed guy that has kind of the combination of everything, that I think he goes in and leads this team in sacks. So that was another Buckeye fanatical prediction that I made from the last video, but I'm going to stick with it and definitely say that Jack Sawyer is in the 2 deep without question, even with Tyler Friday and Jean Baptiste, who could be the odd man out. And will get every opportunity to win a top 2 spot at defensive end on his side of the ball, but Jack Sawyer throws a big wrinkle in there. It really has to get Tyler Friday and Jean Baptiste playing their best football, because if they don't, they're going to lose playing time to the incoming freshman. So obviously a big impact guy there. I think JTT is more of a transitional guy, because I don't see JTT being a defensive end starter down the road for Ohio State. I see him being more of a 3 technique starter, a defensive tackle. He's going to put on a little bit more size in Mariotti's strength program, and strength and bulk up top in his shoulders and his chest. And I think in the end, that extra weight, that extra muscle, just kind of getting more lean at the same time, and getting used to playing more three technique or inside down lineman, I think is going to pay dividends down the road. But I also don't think it's going to make him as much of an impact freshman on the defensive line as a guy like Jack Sawyer, which is maybe not what many would think given JTT's #1 status in many recruiting services. So there's those guys. I think a big guy that's not being talked about, literally and figuratively, a big guy that's not being talked about is Donovan Jackson. I mentioned that he is the inside primary backup at the guard spots, and that says a lot. I mean, I'm calling Harry Miller to start at center, which I guess puts Matt Jones at the left guard, but in my position also puts Matt Jones as the most fragile starter in terms of who Donovan Jackson may be pushing for playing time. Donovan Jackson is only going to do that because Donovan Jackson has a super head on his shoulders and will be able to tackle the playbook, which for an offensive lineman is integral, and the reason why most offensive linemen freshmen don't come in and have such an impact, or don't come in and have significant playing time. I think Donovan Jackson could be the exception, and he has every physical tool to go along with those mental tools to make an impact. So Donovan Jackson is going to play. He's not going to redshirt. That's my prediction. Mika Buka is probably going to be at the disposal of Julian Fleming's health. So Emeka BuCkIf is definitely going to be a top 6 guy. I've got him at number 6. But Julian Fleming, whether or not he stays healthy, he's had some injury problems. He's that type of physical wide receiver. We've seen some others, Devin Smith being one, that have all these tools but also put themselves in some pretty big predicaments physically, just because they can do everything. They've also often put their body at risk. So we'll see how much the young receivers play. I think BuCkIf is a guy that will play, but maybe in the year with, let's just call it 8 to 12 catches, and we'll be looking for bigger things in his sophomore season. I don't see too many other freshmen. Jesse Mirko, obviously the Australian punter who comes in, and as an Ohio State fan, we have high expectations of our Australian punters. So big expectations for him. Any other freshmen that I'm probably missing some guys, but there aren't a whole lot of guys, as there are with any year, even with this good of a recruiting class, guys that are going to make that much of an impact as freshmen, although this year I think we have more. Because of Jack Sawyer, because of Travion Henderson, in particular, those 2 guys, we are going to see an impact from freshmen. I've been actually pretty accurate at calling impact guys that may or may not have too much of an impact as a freshman, but certainly panned out last 3 years with Ohio State. Josh Myers, perfect example. I was super high on Josh when he came out, and just going off the tape, which is what I do a lot of the time, is I really just look at the tape. I'm like, okay, what does this guy bring to the table right off the bat? And I think that's one of the most important factors. There are other factors, but so that covers most of the freshman class. If I'm trying to think of who I'm missing here, Marvin Harrison Jr. obviously going to be, I've got him at number 5 in the whole wide receiver room. His physical size is going to help him contribute right away. The red zone threat going to help him contribute right away. And may be more of an impact player and producer than Emeka BuCkIf, who is ranked well ahead of him as far as recruiting. May not. They both may contribute about equally. That'd be a pretty good prediction too. So on the other freshmen, I don't know. There are some guys like Burke and Jansen who may make an impact on special teams and may not redshirt, but there are going to be a lot of guys on this list, even as high as they are ranked, that will not play. Kyle McCord is a guy, hey, he's like Donovan Jackson. I mean, when you're 2 on the depth chart, which I think both those guys are going to be, you are 1 step away from huge playing time in the shoe. So I think that Donovan Jackson and Kyle McCord are both people to watch, just simply because they are next man up, probably coming right out of fall camp. So anyway, there's your update video. Like and subscribe. If you have any questions, throw them at the bottom. Have any more information you want to throw in, throw it at the bottom. I'm sure that there were some freshmen that I didn't cover that I probably should have covered, but we'll get it with maybe the next video when we're hitting on another subject as well. Thanks. See you.